Alright, welcome to the first video of Chapter 2. Now, I just want you to see right away that Chapter 2 has 12 total learning targets, but realistically this is probably going to be the shortest chapter of all year. As you can tell by your packet, I think it's only 9 separate, or actually 5 pages, front and back. So it's really short. So let's just get started. We're going to try to accomplish this in 2 videos, but that may not happen. So our goal today is to hopefully, now this could change by the end of the video depending on how long it takes me to get there, but this is the learning targets we're going to cover in this video here. So first of all, representing negative numbers on a number line. So, just like we just did regular number line, we just did positive numbers. Now we're just going to add negative numbers on there. We're going to do recognizing opposite signs of numbers as indicating locations on opposite sides of 0 on the number line. Okay, we'll get to that. It'll make sense here in a minute. Understand the positive and negative numbers are used together to describe quantities having opposite directions or values. Again, it'll all make sense soon. Recognize that the opposite of a number is the number itself. So again, that probably sounds really confusing, but when you learn what an opposite is, you're going to get it. Understand that 0 is its own opposite. Understand statements of inequalities for integers. Okay? Write, interpret, and explain of order for rational numbers in real-world context. And finally, use positive and negative numbers to represent the quantities in real-world context. Explain the meaning of 0 in each thing. So with that said, let's just get started here pretty quickly. Now the first thing you need to notice with number lines, guys, okay, this is one of the hardest things for students to do. You guys, most of you were so good at drawing horizontal number lines like this when we were just talking about positive numbers. Yeah, you knew that 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4 and then 5. You knew how to do that. You knew the smaller numbers are on the left, the larger numbers were to the right. But when you add integers, it gets a little bit tricky. Now I'm going to pick somewhere in the middle. I'm going to assume that that's the middle of the number line. And we're going to put 0 right there to start. Okay? Now, going from 0, and if yours isn't specifically where mine is, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Just pick a spot somewhere close to the middle. I don't even know if we have enough here to actually do what it asks, but we'll just work with it. If we look from 0 to the right, technically if we thought about our number line, I'll do it in red. If we thought about our number line up here, this would be 0. Okay, so and then it goes negative to the left of 0. So right here, this is easy. I mean, this is just 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, and again, if your center was a little bit off and you had to just extend this and add a hash here, I mean, we didn't have to go to 11. I'm just trying to show you that if you have to, that's no big deal. Okay, now where you guys are good with to the right of 0, you've been doing those number lines for a long time. Okay. Now, before I go any further, we need to remember what this word. Please write this. We need to remember what this word is. An integer. An integer is a positive or a negative whole number. Positive or negative. We covered this last unit, but we didn't really use the negative integers. We only used positive whole numbers. Whole numbers. Okay? So integers are positive or negative whole numbers. So all of these right here that I have listed are all integers. Okay? Now we got to go to the left of 0. Well, you got to think of 0 right here as a fold. If you folded, or I guess we could use the word reflection. That would be a good word. I used an example earlier this year about a reflection. If you looked into a swimming pool, right there's my swimming pool, okay, and I said if I was standing right here and I was looking into the pool, what would be the closest thing to the edge in the pool? Well, it'd be my feet. What would be the furthest thing away? It would be my head. Okay, well, my point is there's our reflection. Okay, our feet are really close to each other. Our feet are really close to each other. Our heads are the furthest away. Well, that's kind of what happens right here at 0. 0 is right at the edge of that pool. So when I look right here, this is going to be negative 1. Okay, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6. And I know I didn't leave you enough space at all here, guys, so just do your best. Negative 9 and negative 10. Sorry about the spacing on that. It's really, I didn't do a very good job with that. Okay, so as you look at this, you count the exact way going left, as you do to the right. You just reflect. Just like my feet over here were really close to each other, whether in the reflection or my real feet, same with like the number 1. The number 1 and negative 1 are the same distance from 0. The number 2 and negative 2 are the same distance from 0. Okay, so that, just think of that as the reflection, the edge of the swimming pool or the edge of the water. Okay, now let's go over here and let's do a positive or a vertical. So we did verticals, but nothing's really changed for you guys. Everything's still the same. Some of you still didn't know on the test that the difference between a horizontal and a vertical. A horizontal goes side to side. A vertical, think about a vertical jump. Okay, that's how I remember it. A vertical jump is one where you jump up and down. Okay, vertical jump. Okay, but again, when you're doing the vertical number line, remember, we put our bigger numbers up here, we put our smaller numbers at the bottom. Okay, just like a thermometer. Okay, so now we're going to draw a number line to represent these numbers. Well, they're already greatest to least. Okay, now you got to remember, think about your number line. So if here was 0, okay, the more I go this way, guys, the smaller the number gets. So if I were at 0, which one of these numbers right here, oops, sorry about that, which one of these numbers would I see first on my number line? I would see negative 26 before I saw any other one, because I'm, again, negative 1, 2, 3, skip all the way, then I'm at negative 24, negative 25, and negative 26. Therefore, negative 26 is the largest of these numbers. Okay, so I'm going to put negative 26 all the way up top. It's weird to think about because all your lives you guys have learned that 26 is larger, or I'm sorry, is smaller than 29. 29 is smaller than 30. 30 is smaller than 32. 32 is also smaller than 34. And I totally understand what you're coming from, but these are negative. Okay, it's a mirror image. They are more negative. The more negative you go, the smaller the number gets. So the more I go this way, the smaller the number gets. So that means that's there, negative 26. Now I go to the next largest, the next smallest, and that's going to be negative 29. And then I'm going to go to negative 30. And then I'm going to go to negative 32, and then negative 34. Okay? Just realize something right now. This right here is the smallest. Negative 34 is much smaller than negative 26. Negative 26 is closer to 0. Think of it that way. Again, you're going more negative. Okay, let's go down. Okay? Copy and complete the number line. Well, okay, so there's negative 4, negative 5. Okay, this is going to be negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, negative 9, negative 10, negative 11, and then negative 12. 13. Okay? So, again, we just count the same way we would have going from 0 to the right as we do going from 0 to the left. You count the exact same way. I'd like you guys to pause it real quick and just do number 11 real fast. Don't worry about this one. Just do number 11. Okay, so it says draw a horizontal number line. So I do that. So I'll just draw my horizontal. Remember, horizontal, side to side. Okay, and I look for either the smallest or the biggest. I got to start somewhere. Or I can just put 0 in there if you want to. Okay, I'm going to just throw 0 right there just because I know 0 is going to be somewhere in the middle. Okay, I see negative 8 there. I know that that is the furthest negative. So I'm going to put negative 8 right there. Done with that. What's the next smallest? Well, negative 5. Negative 5. Okay, and then negative 4. And then negative 2. Okay, and then 2. And then 5. And then 7. Now, I do want you to pick up on something right now. These are not spaced very well. I didn't do a very good job. You can see that there's a 3 number difference between 8 and 5. And here there's only a 1 number difference. But that's not the point. The point is I want you guys to see that from 0, the more you go left, the smaller the number gets. From 0 going to the right, the number gets larger. So if you're ever wondering if one integer is bigger than the other, think about where they would lie on a number line. The one to the right will always be larger. Let's go to page 3. Okay, this is when we kind of tack on the rest of these. Okay, notice that for every positive number, there's a corresponding negative number. Well, that makes sense, right? Please write this. The number 9, Well, there's a corresponding negative 9. Okay, the number negative 7, there's a corresponding positive, oops, sorry, there's a corresponding positive 7. Now, I'm sure this is, you understand this 100%, but I'll just clear it up real quick. If there isn't a plus sign, if it's just 9, you guys should know that that is positive 9. Okay, just like when I say the number 8, you have to basically know that that's positive 8. Okay, these right here, guys, when I talk about this number, I'm talking about opposites. And there it is right there. Go ahead and, if you can't see that yours is highlighted, but you probably can't, go ahead and rectangle it in for me. It's the same number, only the opposite of it. So if we go through these, negative 14, the opposite of negative 14 would be positive 14. And no, you don't have to put a plus. You know that that is positive because we don't put plus signs in front of it, okay? The opposite of negative 9 is positive 9. The opposite of negative 17 is 17. The opposite of 27 would be negative 27. The opposite of 17 would be, I think that's supposed to be negative 23, would be 23. I didn't mean to say 17, sorry. The opposite of negative 23 is 23. The opposite of positive 46 would be negative 46. Opposites are very simple. Okay, that's all there is to them. Every number has an opposite. It doesn't matter if it's 1/2. The number 1/2, now we're talking about integers, but it doesn't make a difference, would be negative 1/2. Okay, those are opposites each other. Again, these are rational numbers, but I'm just trying to show you that there's always an opposite for every number. Okay, let's go to the next page. I'll zoom in here a bit. Okay, write statements of inequality. So this is the same learning target essentially that you did last unit, with the only difference being that now we're talking about integers. We're including negative numbers. So right here you can see that they gave you a number line. Okay, that's negative 12. If it's hard to see on your copy, I apologize if it didn't copy very well. But that's negative 12, and that's negative 10. Now, when we think about the numbers 12 and 10, we immediately, in our mind, you guys are thinking, well, 12 is larger than 10. But remember, it's opposite when we're talking about negatives. Okay, think about where this would be on a number line. Negative 12 would be right there. Negative 10 would be there. I said the more right a number is, the larger one is always to the right. So everybody write that. Larger number to the right. Okay? So right away we can see that negative 10 is actually larger than negative 12. In other words, negative 12 is less than negative 10. Let's go to this one. Again, think about it. I'll do it in green. Negative 6 would fall right there. Negative 9 would fall right there. I can clearly see that negative 6 is more right. And the more right one, when I say right I mean to the right direction, is larger. Okay? Here I think that says negative 8 and negative 5. Okay, I'll do it in yellow. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but there's yellow, or there's negative 8, there's negative 5. Which one's larger, negative 8 or negative 5? Well, negative 5 falls more to the right, so therefore negative 8 is less than negative 5. And finally, we'll do this last one. We got the number 1, and then we got negative 4. So I got 1, which is right here. We got negative 4. Now you should know right away, if you ever see a positive number being compared to a negative number, then you got to immediately know the positive will always be larger. So that would be greater than. Okay? And there's the answers we just talked about. Let's go down here and do a couple of these. I'd like you to pause, and I just want you to do 19, 21, and 23. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm looking at my problems here at 19, 21, and 23. Okay, I look and I say, which one would be more to the right on my number line? Okay, I know that 0 would be here. I know that negative 6 somewhere right here. And I know negative 15 would be all the way over there somewhere. So right away, I know that negative 6 is larger than negative 15. Notice the inequality symbol is trying to eat the larger number. Okay, negative 3, if 0 right here, negative 3 would be somewhere right in here. Okay, and then negative 30 would really be a far away to the left. Clearly negative 3 is a larger number. And then here, we don't even have to do the number line because I see a positive there and I see a negative. I know that positives will always be larger than negatives. Okay, let's go to the next page. Okay, on these next two, These are already done for you, so all you really need to do is listen here. We're just talking about applying these same things we just talked about in real-world situations. So you're comparing, using inequality signs, of course, integers in the real world. Now, a lot of times when we talk about integers, temperature is the first thing that we talk about because it's really easy to think about temperature because we know if it's -5 out, we understand that. That's 5 below 0. And students really can comprehend what that means. Same goes for this next one. We're talking about elevation, sea level. Okay, and we can see that these are below sea level. Okay, and the other one is above, the bottom one. So going back up here, it says September's lowest recorded temperature was -13 degrees. Lower than August, okay, which was 8 degrees. And it says you want to compare these. Well, -13 is less than 8 degrees. Or remember, you could write it like this. 8 degrees Fahrenheit is greater than -13. Remember, it doesn't matter how you write it, whether you write it this way or this way, because if you look at the inequality symbol, which one is the big part facing? It's facing 8 no matter how you look at it. So it's trying to eat 8 regardless. Okay? Same goes for down here. It says it wants to compare the elevation of -282 and -509. So it wants you to basically take -282 and -509, and you got to figure out which one's larger. Think about it. Which one would be further left? That's the smaller one. Or you could think of it as which one's closer to 0. Okay? And you can definitely see that this is only 282 away from 0. This is 509. So clearly, -282 is greater than -509. Okay? And you can see they did another one there, but they compared the negative and the positive. Again, the positive will always be larger. Okay? Let's go on. A little bit of practice. I'd like you to try number 25, 26, 27, and 28. Pause, please. All right. 0 degrees is warmer than -5 degrees Celsius. Okay? 0 is obviously greater than -5. Makes sense, right? 0 degrees is actually warmer than -5 degrees. Okay? The elevation of Valdez, I don't know, Peninsula, which is -131 feet, is less than the elevation of Caspian Sea, which is -92 feet. So -131 is less than -92. Again, if you thought about these two numbers right here, just visualize them for me. Visualize them on a number line. And which one would be to the left and which one would be to the right? This one would be more right. This one would be more left. Okay? You're going more negative. So as the number gets larger, even though the number itself, when I say the number itself, I mean 131, even though that is getting larger, it's got that negative sign, so it's actually, the number is getting smaller. Okay? Okay. If you did this, you should have just said -61 degrees is less than -47. Or you could have said -61 degrees is colder than -47. Either way is fine there. Okay, you're just basically interpreting what it says. Here, -520 feet is greater than -893 feet. Okay? Now, last thing here we've got to talk about. We haven't talked about this at all. Okay? This is what one of our learning targets said, and we read it at the beginning of the class. You have to be able to write whether we're talking about a positive or a negative integer to represent the situation. So, for example, here we're talking about 438 degrees above 0, above freezing. Okay? We know that that has to be shown by giving a positive 438. Okay? Now, if you don't have to write this next what I'm about to write, but if this said below, oops, sorry about that. If that said below, come on, pen, then it'd be -438. So what I'm just trying to get you guys to see is there's one word that's going to be the descriptor every time that's going to tell you if it's positive or negative. There it was above. Here it's going to be below. Okay? Here it's going to be a loss. Okay? Okay, 8,327 feet below sea level. Now remember, there's sea level is considered 0. So if it's feet below, this would have to be a negative 8,327 feet. Okay? A loss of 20 yards. You are losing 20 yards. This would be a negative integer. Okay? I'd like you guys to pause and do 2, 4, and 6 real fast, please. Okay? Again, let's just identify the word, the key word in every one of these that just helps us find the answer. There's below. There's above. There's a credit. That's a different one. So again, below 0, if I'm talking about a temperature being below, think about a vertical number line. Again, if 90 degrees is up here and 0 degrees is here, wouldn't negative, 25 degrees be down there? Isn't that 25 degrees below 0? That's the connection I'm trying to get you guys to make here. This would be negative 164 degrees. Okay? 12,316 feet above sea level. Again, same thing. Positive. And you could put a positive sign there, or you could just leave it as 12,316, because when we don't put the plus sign, we know that it is positive. Now, if we're a credit of 3,401. Okay? For those of you that don't know what a credit is when you actually get credited amount of money. Okay? So you are getting this, a credit of 3,401. Okay? So when you get credited that would have to be a positive integer. Okay? Maybe that one got you a little bit because you thought credit card, maybe. A credit card would be you'd be spending money, so that would obviously be a negative integer. You have less money on you. So the last thing I need to cover that I didn't up here, and I'll do this real fast, is if I said what's the opposite of negative 7, you guys should know that's 7. Okay? But I want you to see this. This was one of our learning targets too. If I would ever ask you this, you got to know what this means. This means the opposite of the opposite. Okay? So the opposite, write this, opposite of the opposite. Okay? Which is a mouthful. I get it. I understand that that's a little bit tricky. But think about it. It's the opposite of the opposite. So I'm asking you for the opposite here. What's the opposite of negative 7? I'm just focusing here. The opposite of negative 7 is positive 7. And then the opposite of that is negative 7. So we're right back to negative 7. I hope that makes sense. The opposite of the opposite. Okay? So let me come at this one more direction here just to make sure we're all clear. It says the opposite of the opposite. So I have to say, what's the opposite of negative 7? That's 7. So that's just the opposite of that. But I got to do the opposite of the opposite, which makes it negative 7. Okay? We'll practice that in class. That one probably was a little tricky. You're probably sitting there going, what in the world? But again, I'll show you another one. If I ask, like this, that tells you the opposite of the opposite. That's what I'm asking you for. So the opposite of this opposite would be negative 6, because I'm asking for the opposite of this opposite. So the opposite of negative 6 is positive 6. So the opposite is negative 6. I know that's really, really hard. Same goes for like this. If I'd ask you for this, you could say the opposite of 5. The opposite of 5 is negative 5. Okay? But hopefully I didn't confuse you too much with that. But I think you guys are going to do really well with this. We'll see. I hope. If not, we'll work on it. See you guys.